So you have done a lot of large-scale sculptures for commissions and,
Yes.
and at other spaces around the country. Do you have a particular favorite?
You know, I think maybe the first one was my favorite, partly because it was my first one, but also because it was sort of influenced a little bit by seeing the head of Constantine, and I don't remember if it's Rome or Florence, but the thing that impressed me so much about that was it's a 37-foot sculpture that is all in parts now, and this head is just a fragment. And if it was still 37 feet, it would occupy a space. It would have the viewer, looking up at it, because it was a propagandistic, monumental work of art. It was about power. And so when I did that head of Justice, I put it right on the pavement. And this very column-like neck sits right on the pavement. And so people viewing it can understand that it's about, it's really about the power within each of us, the potential for heroic qualities in everyone. Which seemed to me a much more democratic idea than putting it up on a pedestal, so the viewer feels like a peon.
Right, so it was a strong decision to democratize it by putting it at street level.
Exactly, yeah.
And do you feel like the approach shifted, like the viewers had a good experience of it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yes, I think they did. And I think it was well loved. I mean, GSA Art and Architecture loved that piece. And Cesar Pelli, the architect, and his committee gave me an award for it.
Mm-hmm.
And they had it on their website forever. So, yeah, it was well received.
Yeah. On the other piece, which is obvious in your sort of creative trajectory, is this thing about how you approach the dominance of the male artist and how you've kind of pushed back on that, and the sort of immense physicality of the work that you do. Tell us a little bit about what your personal and artistic experiences of that entire piece.
Well, it's I was told you before, I posed for my husband for 20 years, standing poses, 9 to 5, every day. They took a year to do, one took a year and a half to do. So I had a huge commitment to his career. And, at some point, I realized I had to find myself, that I had sort of gotten lost. And so that's sort of what led me to try to, actually I was trying to find within these monumental images of justice my own strength, and so that's sort of...
So like a projective aspect.
Yes, exactly.
And did you find fulfillment in that process?
Yeah, it was very fulfilling, This is a funny little story, but I don't know if you've ever heard of the Frog and Toad books, but I was reading one of these books to my daughter, and it's a story about Toad, who's up on this stage and he loves to perform, and Frog is just sitting in the audience. He's the only one, he's in the dark, and he's clapping all the time for Frog, day in and day out. He's doing this, for Toad. And after a while, the clapping gets softer and softer, and Frog gets smaller and smaller. And then finally Toad says, "Frog, where are you?" And when I saw that, I realized that was me. That was the story of my 22 years of marriage. And so I started to build, I built confidence by running marathons, and I won a bunch of marathons and came very close to qualifying for the Olympics. And so that really made me realize I had the determination and the focus and the drive to do what I really wanted to do. And then I also got a couple of very lucky breaks. People putting me in shows and so forth.
Right. So there's a strong correlation between your own physicality and the physicality that's expressed in the work and the scale of it, and an early experience of the patriarchy, a very personal experience of the patriarchy.
Exactly.
So this kind of led to, I mean, scale was always a theme, but tell me a little bit about the public works and all of these things, and then we'll move on to the verses for sure. Yeah.
Tell you more about the public works?
Yeah, just in terms of like what you came to all of these public collections, you sort of became known more prominently through these pieces.
Yes.
How did that sort of all happen? Is that too broad a
How did
question?
it happen?
Yeah.
Okay, well, after 22 years, I finally had the confidence to break away from that marriage, which I had to do because there was no room for two artists in that marriage. And so I moved out, but I had no money, and I had no marketable skills, and I had to give 120% to what I was doing because I was already in my 40s. And so anyway, I didn't know what I was going to do. Well, it turned out Alan Stone gave me a show.
I didn't know that.
And
My hero.
that show was very well received because about 2 months before that, my former husband, there was an article in Art in America about his paintings and a little bit about us and about a certain tension that was going on there, which surprised me that he would allow that. But in any case, so when I had this show, a lot of artists came out of curiosity to see me, you know, because they thought of me as an artist's wife and model and muse. And I had a really good response. I mean, Marguerite Flack and Robert Arneson wanted to buy a piece, and Wayne Thiebaud really liked the pieces, and William Bailey wrote me a really nice note. So Alan...
Just to briefly contextualize this, Alan Stone was one of the most important dealers in New York for many, many years, and Wayne Thiebaud was one of the people that he started.
Yes, that's
in addition to Diana and more, so just be aware of that. I'm sorry.
So he bought my entire show. And that kept me afloat for like a year, maybe even more, I don't remember. And then I was out of money again. And I called Alan and said, Alan, can you buy some more work? And he said, this isn't a good time for me. Well, this is probably the most amazing thing that ever happened to me. I got a phone call from a woman named Susan Harrison at the Art and Architecture committee organization that's part of GSA, saying that I had won a commission for $125,000, which I had never applied for.
And what year was this?
Oh God, I have no idea. I'm terrible at dates. But anyway, it was like divine intervention. You know, I mean, who knew? And the way it had happened was that the visual coordinator for the arts in New Jersey had gone into this little museum show that a friend of mine put me in, and saw the works. I had already been doing big concrete heads, and when this committee to pick an artist for the Newark project, the new federal courthouse in Newark, they had seen 200 slides and couldn't agree on anybody. So he submitted my work just as kind of like, he had to do something, you know, find somebody that they would all agree to. They gave me unanimous approval. So that's how it happened. And of course, after that, many times I tried again for a commission, you know, applying. And it's very competitive, especially being that close to New York, you know. So it was like a total gift that I got that. And then I got a design award from that, from Cedar Pelly and a committee. So I was sort of up and running. You know, I did 2 more really big images of justice. And, you know, it's kind of funny because I was feeling like frog, that big. And then all of a sudden, here it was, doing these monumental images of a female, and who was it? Justice. You know, it was like a complete, you know, like I was getting the justice that was due me. You know, but in life, how often does that happen?
You actually got to manifest the metaphor.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So now we've gotten onto that, I'd like to talk about your first series, which has a really fun backstory. And maybe we can wander over to the verses while we're doing that.
Okay.
Since they're all here and exquisite.
And
we can talk a little.
So,
and I'll just step back so you can answer with John.
Okay, so I can talk to you from here.
Please.
Is this a good angle? I don't know. But anyway, I've always been a physically really strong person, after my second one-person show at the Allen Stone Gallery, I learned that my mother and father were ill, and they died within less than 2 weeks of each other. And I came home from Florida and got pneumonia. And, you know, that was the first time that I thought to distinguish physical strength from inner strength. And that seemed to me like, that was a great idea. You know, it's like, why wouldn't I address the inside of sculpture? The inside is a completely different reality. The public self and the inner reality are two different things, even though they're related, of course. So that's what led to the purses. And also the fact that I'd done like maybe 6 big public commissions. And the thing about public commissions is that they're very, very earnest and very formal, and they take a great deal of time to make.
And there's a lot of bureaucracy around it.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the seriousness of the subject, you know, it has to be that way by necessity. And so I wanted something that was small and playful and intimate, and it was also a move away from doing the figure. This is sort of like a metaphor for the female image. And I think one of my absolutely favorite purses is Prickly Purse. I'm sorry. And it was inspired by industrial rubber mats that have prongs sticking up from them to, you know, make it softer for people. The other thing that really influenced me was my dealer, Alan Stone, at that time has a huge collection of fetish art, African fetish art.
He's very big on like the Congolese fetish items with the nails.
Yeah,
the
exactly. Yes, these
Different
nails
form.
sticking out of the
Yeah.
form. But what was interesting to me about it is you have this solid form, but these projections are reinstating that form on another dimension. And there's just something visually interesting about that.
Yeah.
So and all these purses open up, by the way. So they're kind of about, you know, I've always been very obsessive about getting the form absolutely right. And while I was working on that and struggling with it, I kept thinking about how women are so obsessive about their figures and their forms, and how they present that to the world. And one presents oneself to the world, and you open up, and they're perfectly plain inside, but beautiful. And so so it's about the public self and the inner private reality. And another one I really like is the Holy Purse, which was inspired by walking into a sheet metal shop and seeing all these big sheets of perforated steel. And as I walked by it, the lighting behind the perforated steel would move. And so it was kind of like the light was kind of twinkling as you walked past it. And so I really liked that kind of visual thing that was happening. And so I made this purse called Holy Purse, and of course these are very obviously about the human form, the female anatomy. But they also have kind of a very formal presence too. You know, so it's not, this could be considered almost grotesque, but at the same time it's something beautiful. So, you know, there's sort of this given opposite things going on inside the piece. And this is called seeding purse, and these are like little seed pods that you're seeing half of, and the seeds inside. And clearly it's about fertility. And this is sort of like a breastplate, and the way you open this purse is by pulling out the nipple and opening it up. So that's always been one of my favorites. It looks like it could be related to Japanese teapots. You know, it has that same quality about it. So that's kind of what those are about. And I could talk too about the spilling vessels.
Yeah, I would love to hear about those because they're very, it's obviously fine art, but there's this really whimsical quality to it.
Yeah.
Which I love, but the fact that it's staying, it's staying fine art, it has this really interesting line between being really approachable and really whimsical and almost fun, but there's no question that you're still in the fine art territory. So that's just my comment here.
Yeah,
Tell me a little bit about.
I think I kind of pushed that, in the spilling vessels and in the purses, but I think they transcend craft.
Right.
They transcend.
Oh yeah, they're well beyond that.
Yeah. So anyway, these spilling vessels, what happened was that in another period of my life, I had a major surgery. I had emergency surgery, and it was because of an IUD that caused an enormous infection inside me. And it took me, I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. It was a long time. And so, once again, I felt like my sense of strength, physical strength, was being questioned. And while I was recovering from that, I was reading a lot of science. I just always really liked science because it fills me with wonder. And so, anyway, it caused me to sort of think about the human life, its lifespan, and how incredibly short it is, puny actually, in terms of geologic time. So I thought of doing these vessels, and a vessel is kind of a very static thing and clearly an object, but when you tip it over and you have this kind of fluid running out of it, it becomes animate. And so these liquids coming out of it, kind of represent the life force, and the handles. Some of them, I guess almost all of them have handles, become sort of like limbs, and in some cases they reflect both the liquid coming out and the handles carry the kind of expressive weight of the piece. And they're on the back side of them, there's a target on the back of every one of them. And that is symbolic of one's demise, eventual demise. But it's on the back side. So it's busy, living its life by giving its, putting forth its energy, its vitality. But there's only so much inside any of the vessels. So they're kind of tragic, comic little things, and therefore, I try to make them as beautiful as possible. I felt I could at least give them that.
Right. Well, that's wonderful. Let's take a seat, because I think we've done some good coverage there. And I just wanted to, since we're at 25 minutes or so, I just wanted to throw it open to any questions from the audience. If there are any questions, Jonathan, that would be great to get. If you're seeing anything there, they just pop up and then move on to the conversation. Anything so far? Okay, well, we can leave it there if we're not hearing anything. No? Okay. Diana, that was really great. Thank you very much. And we're very excited. And again, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that the show opens tomorrow night at 5 at New York Gallery in Santa Fe on Canyon Road. Tomorrow's the 29th of April, and it runs through the 15th of May. And we have a lot of beautiful work and powerful work to be seen here from Diana. So it's really worth your time to come down and see it. And we thank everyone very much for participating. Thank you. It's nice to see you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks.